last thing here, folks who are listening in, they're probably either somewhat in the process or thinking about getting started. Um, let's see, Kelly, I'll start with you. Any additional tips you have for folks out there who are wondering how to get these done?
Yeah, I guess my additional tip is more about I guess managing anxiety in the
Hmm.
actual testing experience. And I guess I had a strategy for actually sitting for each division, and it didn't matter what the division was. And that's like if I was going to feel a little panicky or anxious, it was going to
Uh-huh.
probably be in the first 30 minutes when,
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of questions to answer and you're just getting into it.
Hmm.
And then I was probably going to feel a little panicky towards the end when you're watching the timer run out. And so what I would do is always start with the discrete questions from the get-go, and then wait out that 30, 40 minutes or so, and then when I feel kind of calmer, I'm like, okay, I just sort of switch out of the discrete and then go to the case study, because at that point I just felt like, okay, now I can look at all these all these pieces of information and a lot more content to sort of sift through.
Uh-huh.
So I would do that, and it kind of felt good because then you'd be like, all right, well, I got like maybe 30, 40% of the discrete questions done, and then big block of time for case studies, and then towards the end, like switch back to follow up on the rest of the questions. And everybody, I think, is going to feel a little bit of anxiety, and just like the actual being in those testing centers is not pleasant. I don't know if your testing experience is better than mine, but computers are awful and the lights are awful, and just so you just have to know how your body's going to react to stress a little bit, and sort of have like a strategy for when you're ready to look at one type of question versus another. And I felt that that was helpful.
Yeah, that's a really good comment, and something I've said before, I'll say again here. This anxiety bit is actually really common. There's a whole line of sort of inquiry around this in academia around test anxiety. So, I mean, everyone gets a little bit anxious, and some people it's very anxious. Some people it's overwhelmingly anxious. So it sort of runs the gamut. So regardless of whatever category you fit into, or someone fits into, I think the key here is to sort of be aware of it and just know it's okay and develop a strategy for how to manage it. Is sort of the I'm remembering some of the goofy things I used to do to manage my anxiety during the test. And it would probably be a really funny thing to document all the goofy things that everyone does to manage their strategies or to manage their anxiety when they go into the tests, or even like to be lucky, right? The like baseball players who have all these goofy rituals for how they, they have keep the good luck going. I'm remembering having some of those. Michael, how about you? Any additional tips to add for how to knock this test out?
Yeah, yeah. I definitely did something similar. I, would sit down and take a deep breath and sort of center myself before, and then get rolling. And I also definitely had an extra coffee before the test so that I could keep focused for 4 hours.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, during the test, I used the flag pretty liberally.
Hmm.
I really love to just sort of like roll through. If there's anything I wasn't positive, I was not, pretty positive I was right on, I would flag it and get back to it on the second half. Um, Not the second half, like the last 30 minutes or something, but that for internal test strategies and other tips, it was just the hardest part for me was really making the effort to start. I think getting through the process of filing with the state, getting just sort of just deciding to commit and sort of change your life around a little bit to give yourself a ton of time to study for these things. That was the biggest part, but maybe it was just doing it. It was just deciding to schedule the stuff and make it happen. That was the biggest hurdle for me.
Was there something that uh, I don't know contributed to you finally committing?
I'm sorry.
Was there something specific? Did someone say something to you? I don't know, did a boss talk to you at a review and say, hey, you really should get licensed, and that was the thing that like triggered your commitment to doing it? Like, what triggered it for you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think um, definitely, bosses mentioned it in the review, but it wasn't too much external pressure really.
Yeah.
It was mostly getting to a point in the project or being able to manage my workload and other like life demands that I felt okay, I'm comfortable with this, and now I really want to, see the next thing on the horizon, and I really feel like I want to get this done before that. Um, that was probably the motive, and then track that back a year, and that was probably the motivating factor.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Tyler, how about you?
Yeah, I completely agree with about when you finally get in and you're at the computer to just take a deep breath before you do anything and just get yourself centered, like you just mentioned. You've going through the check-in process sometimes can take a while, and it just can be a process. So just getting into the computer, take a deep breath, relax, get your desk organized before you really get into the test is important. Couple other small tips about the actual test. Something I found that was helpful was as soon as I got into the test, I would go straight to the case studies and make note of the resources that are available for the case studies.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they give you code sections, but you may find that there will be resources in the case studies that will help you answer questions throughout the test. So I would always make a note of those, and then anytime I came across a question that might have information in those resources, I'd always flag it. Try not to go back and forth. I don't think it's a good idea to go to a question and then go back to the case study and look for the information. It'd be better to just keep note of questions that could use those resources. So maybe I got 2, 3, 4 questions out of each exam just by simply knowing that there's a resource that can provide the answer inside of the exam. Otherwise, outside of the exam, I just think that the best thing you can do is if you are struggling with any particular subject matter, to just ask questions at work. Your work experience is going to be the biggest thing that can strengthen any of these subjects that you don't understand. Whether it's reaching out to a mechanical engineer and see if he'll give you a few minutes to help explain what a heat pump is, or asking whoever may deal with the contracts at work to maybe they can throw you a couple hours worth of work editing a contract, and they can maybe hold your hand in understanding some of that subject matter. I just think that utilizing those practical resources that you have at your day job, assuming you have an architectural job, will be the biggest thing that'll help you get through anything that you're stuck on, any of that subject matter, because you will hit subject matter that just doesn't make sense. And again, I think a lot of people will run into problems with mechanical concepts or structural concepts, and just a few minute conversation with an engineer, they can just lay it out in a visual manner that helps you understand, or they just give you a one-liner that just makes it all click. I just think using those resources is a great advantage.
Yeah, I think that's I don't think I did that a whole lot when I was taking the test many years ago, but that's really great advice. And I love that comment earlier, I think, from Kelly about talking to your consultants or colleagues, and if you can have a reasonable conversation with them, you're probably pretty good. I think it's a good kind of measure of the level of competence that they're trying to sort of assess us on. So that's really helpful.